Hey everybody, Rob Maurer here, and today we finally get to report on President Biden saying some shocking words, absolutely shocking words. Definitely had to do a bit of a double take to see if I had actually heard that, but we'll talk about that, we'll play the clip. Also got news out of China, Berlin, and some other news in Europe. Kind of a boring day for Tesla stock today, finishing up 1.6% to close at $922 even, but the Nasdaq was up 1.3%. So in that kind of a macro environment, really not the best performance from Tesla today. And again, we continue to see very low volume. As I am recording at close, about 17 million shares traded so far. So depending on after hours, it looks like for the second consecutive day, we're going to have the lowest volume day so far this year. Getting into the news, and what was probably the most exciting part of today was President Biden giving remarks on the current administration's plans for reviving American manufacturing. And we're just going to jump right into the clip. So here is President Biden talking about how America has been investing in manufacturing.
And Intel isn't alone. Since 2021, companies have announced investments totaling more than $200 billion in domestic manufacturing here in America. From iconic companies like GM and Ford building out new electric vehicle production to Tesla, our nation's largest electric vehicle manufacturer, to innovative younger companies like Rivian, building electric trucks, or Proterra, building electric buses.
All right, so it finally happened. Everything is fine. The world is still spinning. The UAW hasn't removed Biden out of office yet. It does feel a little bit anticlimactic, but still, this is important. It is important for Tesla to have this acknowledgement. Doesn't necessarily mean Tesla is going to somehow have better business because of this, or that the communication with the current administration is going to be changed at all. But this is just something that should happen. As a country, we should be acknowledging Tesla's success. Tesla's employees deserve it. Our nation deserves to be told the truth about what's going on. And even though this is just one small sentence and very clearly read off of a teleprompter, it's still good to have the acknowledgement of that truth. Tesla is the leading manufacturer of EVs in the United States and in the world. Ignoring that is just not right. And I doubt going forward from here, we're going to hear a ton about it. I think this is probably kind of an appeasement of all of the attention this has been getting recently, which again is actually pretty nice to see, just like the situation with Missy Cummings and NHTSA. Speaking up in both cases has at least led to some acknowledgement. And yeah, maybe that's not all that meaningful, but where Tesla's at right now, I'm not sure that they really even need much more than acknowledgement. Anyway, Tesla's got such a big lead. From a policy perspective, really all I would hope to see is just things that are not discriminatory against Tesla, and it feels like it's definitely been heading in that direction. I think the most optimistic point of view on this would be that hopefully this would be a sign that the administration understands how important Tesla is to the United States and to the world. If they want to pay a little bit more lip service to companies like Ford and GM, fine, but we need to at least understand that Tesla is critical. Anyway, it's a small win, but I'll definitely take it, and I am happy for those at Tesla to finally get at least a mention. Now we'll see if Elon Musk does, but I think that's probably a little bit longer of a shot. All right, next up, we're talking about a report that came out last evening from CNBC on a production change for some vehicles from Giga Shanghai. Now, I'll spoil it up front. This really isn't a big deal, but CNBC leading with the headline that certainly gets attention: Tesla cut a steering component from some cars to deal with chip shortage, sources say. They write, quote, under pressure to hit fourth quarter sales goals while coping with widespread semiconductor shortages, Tesla decided to remove one of the two electronic control units that are normally included in the steering racks of some made-in-China Model 3 and Model Y cars, according to two employees and internal correspondence seen by CNBC, end quote. Now, obviously, Tesla's not just going to ship cars without parts that are critical for steering. That doesn't make any sense. The hint that we get there is that this is one of two electronic control units. So CNBC later in the article says that, quote, Tesla removed the component because engineers deemed it redundant, primarily installed as a backup. Omitting the control unit will also save Tesla money near term as long as no problems arise as a result of the altered system, end quote. All right, so a more efficient use of limited chip supply and money savings sounds great. So why are there two electronic control units here in the first place? And apparently that is for redundancy for FSD in the future. The correspondence that CNBC mentioned having between employees apparently showed them talking about that, saying that if Tesla were to offer FSD at a level 3 or above, then they would probably need to retrofit the second ECU to bring back that redundancy. But again, these are for Shanghai-made vehicles, so these are going to Asia and Europe. And obviously Tesla is a little bit further behind there on FSD, so really nothing significant in the near term, and probably makes sense to do this and then later add them back as retrofits if needed, which we've already seen Tesla can definitely handle. Certainly the cost of that would be much lower than the opportunity cost of significantly reduced production if this chip was a constraint. All right, next up, we've got just a really quick update on that lawsuit in Berlin over the water supply. As a reminder, as I've said many times before, this is not a gating factor for final approval for Berlin. It often gets reported that way. That's not the case, but this could cause problems after approval, depending on how the ruling goes. I don't think it's going to be a huge risk, but it is out there. Anyway, there was supposed to be a hearing on this last Friday, but RBB24 is reporting that that hearing has been postponed. Classic, right? When has any of this stuff happened on time? But the case here is that the plaintiff's lawyer was sick as well as an employee of the court was sick. So apparently it's going to be rescheduled as soon as possible. So we'll continue to keep an eye out on that. And then separately, final approval, which I haven't really seen anything on recently. The other news that we have out of Europe is from Reuters, which is reporting that, according to some sources, the Motor Vehicle Working Group, which consists of people in the industry and the government and consumer associations, is scheduled to meet tomorrow to discuss emissions testing with a particular focus on plug-in hybrid EVs. I've shared my qualms with plug-in hybrid EVs before, and it looks like some of those concerns are being raised here. So they cite the ICCT, the International Council for Clean Transportation, which has studied data from over 100,000 plug-in hybrids, and that data has indicated that in the real world, plug-in hybrids are using their combustion engine about 2 times as much as emissions tests measure. ICCT's managing director for Europe commented that, quote, "Emissions have still been falling every year, and that's a real success, but the big problem is the hybrids. That's what's deceptive," end quote. So I'm really glad to see this getting attention. That is apparently what is going to be discussed in this meeting tomorrow, to get the actual emissions from plug-in hybrids better reflected in the testing standards. Apparently, under European law for 2021 and forward, vehicles are required to have fuel consumption meters, so they can actually gather real-world data and then reflect that in the emissions test process. However, they don't expect to update the actual testing standard until 2025. So when that does happen, that'll make it more difficult for these automakers to meet increasing emissions standards, might lead to a more robust regulatory credit market. But again, that is quite a ways away still, and there's still time to make progress on BEVs before then. Still, glad to see that it is being discussed. All right, hopping back over to the US, we do have an update here from a couple of senators. This is from Senator Markey and Senator Blumenthal, who we have heard from before with their criticisms of Tesla Autopilot. Senator Markey today on Twitter a couple hours before market close, posting a letter that they have sent to Elon Musk, first kind of complaining about rolling stops, questioning Tesla's safety and design choices, and then also listing 6 questions to Elon Musk and requesting a response to these questions by February 22nd. I mean, yeah, Elon could respond to these, but he certainly does not have an obligation to. Questions here like, please explain Tesla's decision-making process for the design and programming of rolling stops, including when they were first considered, why they were considered, what alternatives were considered, and who was responsible for final approval for their implementation. That's listed as one question, even though that's like 5. All the other questions carry the same tone, and even asking about Tesla's engagements with NHTSA, it seems like these people really just want to work for NHTSA. Sure seems to be the role that they are trying to fill. Now, these criticisms on Autopilot from Senator Markey specifically, they go back years. We've talked about these many times. I expect that this will not be the last time either. Not much more to add to that, so we'll wrap up here with a little bit of an update from Volvo. They've talked about some of their investment plans for electric vehicles, and as part of that, they shared that in their new factories, they intend to use what they call Volvo mega castings. They shared out a video of how this is going to benefit their manufacturing process, which obviously we all know all of that from Tesla, but it is kind of a nice video and just gives an indicator of Tesla really leading the pack, changing the game, and others trying to follow that quickly. All right, that is it for today then. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you're subscribed and signed up for notifications. You can also find me on Twitter at Tesla Podcast, and we'll see you tomorrow for the Wednesday, February 9th episode of Tesla Daily. Thank you.